Did you know with just $1,000 down, you can buy a nice home in most of the US? You wouldn't have to pay rent anymore. I know what you're thinking.
You think we're fools? With $1,000, you can't even rent a small one-bedroom apartment for 1 month. How are you going to buy a home with that money? If you were right, people would have bought dozens of homes every year. How many homes do you own?
Wait a minute. It's true that not everyone can buy a home with just $1,000 down, but most of you watching this video probably can. If you're a first-time homebuyer, meets easy income requirements, and have a decent credit score, you can do it. Basically, you have to get a mortgage and cover the closing costs and the rest of the down payment using city level and state level first-time homebuyer programs, also known as down payment assistance programs. Let me show you how. The first step is to get a feel for the prices of homes in your area that meet your requirements. I use Zillow, but feel free to use any other tool. Decide your criteria before everything else. For example, I'm looking for a townhome with at least 2 bedrooms, at least 1.5 bathrooms, HOA fee less than $400, at least 2 parking spots, 1980 or newer, no 55 plus communities, and rentals allowed. And I'm looking in Woodbury, which is a suburb in St. Paul, Minneapolis. Here's a townhome I found that I liked. Alternatively, I can increase my budget and find this nice house here. Of course, depending on where you live in the US, the prices can be dramatically different. For example, they can be way higher or they can be way lower. To buy a home, the total money you need to complete the transaction is, of course, the sale price of the property plus the closing costs and the prepaid expenses, which is about 2 to 3% of the purchase price, and those include various taxes and fees. If you do the math for our $300,000 townhome, those other closing costs and prepaid expenses would be about $9,000. But fear not. I'll show you how you can complete this transaction with only $1,000 and get the rest from the bank and the first-time homebuyer programs. Actually, it's even possible to buy a home with $0 down if you get a USDA loan or VA loan, which don't require any down payment at all, and ask the seller to cover your closing costs by offering a higher purchase price. We're not going to take that route though, since most of you watching this video wouldn't qualify. For the VA loan, you have to be a veteran, and the USDA loan is mainly for designated rural areas. Instead, we'll talk about an approach that works for almost anyone purchasing their first home. You should familiarize yourself with the city level and the state level first-time homebuyer programs where you want to buy a home. In our example, we plan to buy a home in the city of Woodbury in the state of Minnesota. So first, we find the first-time homebuyer program in Woodbury. Here it is. This one's a pretty generous program. They offer deferred loans, which means you only pay interest each month, but pay the principal only in the distant future, of up to $30,000, and with a very low, which is below market rate, interest rate. 3% if you're a first-time homebuyer, but 0% if you're also a first-generation homebuyer. So if you're a first-generation homebuyer, you have absolutely no monthly payment for this additional loan. Otherwise, you pay just the tiny bit of interest each month. Of course, you have to meet certain criteria to qualify for their program. The main ones are the property price being below a certain threshold, currently $419,000, and Your household income should also be below a certain threshold, which is currently 146 grand. With this program, however, the home buyer, which is you, must have a minimum contribution of 10 grand for the home purchase. That's where the state level first-time homebuyer program comes into play. Each state has their own program. In our example, we find the one offered by the state of Minnesota. The state program has their own requirements, such as income limits and purchase price limits. You should look up the details of the program your state offers. One nice thing about this state-level program, at least for Minnesota, is that it requires a minimum contribution of only $1,000. So you put in $1,000 from your savings or from a gift and get the rest of the funds you need from the state-level program. And so here's our strategy. You get the biggest chunk of money in the form of a mortgage you get from a bank, credit union, or a mortgage broker. You could get a conventional loan where you put as little as 5% down or even 3% down, or you could get an FHA loan where you put 3.5% down. So let's go with the conventional 97 loan where we put 3% down and get 97% of the purchase price as a loan. So for the 300 grand townhome in Woodbury, we get 291 grand from the lender as the mortgage. For the remaining 18 grand, which is our closing costs and the remaining of the purchase price, we put down just $1,000 from our own savings, get 9 grand from the state level homebuyer program, and 8 grand from the city level homebuyer program. And that's it. I hope you're now convinced that the title and thumbnail of this video weren't clickbait at all. You can indeed buy a home with just $1,000 down. Each month, instead of paying rent, you'll be making payments toward these loans that you got. I hope you found this video helpful. If you got any value from this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, comment below on your thoughts. Thanks for watching and see you next time.